Allison, this is the Lord speaking. Well, good afternoon. We're ready to cut the music. Well, good afternoon. We are so happy to see you, and we may have a few stragglers coming in here a little bit later, and but that's fine. I'm delighted that you chose to come and be a part of the second annual missions conference and learn about some things that's going on in our community and our world in terms of missions and outreach and ways that different organizations are impacting our area for the kingdom. And so we just really happy that you're here and hope it will be a blessing to you and a useful time for you as you get to engage with some of these organizations. So I'm going to go by the agenda, and so we're going to just go ahead and have a word of prayer, and then we'll have some local testimonies from our church, just some mission events that we've been involved with this past year, and just kind of give you a little bit of an update on some of those things. And some of those things, by the way, stemmed from the missions conference last year, okay? And so do we have anybody that's speaking on Hiding Place Hollow? Okay. But I mean, like anybody speaking on their behalf or anything like that? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I might just take a minute and share just a little bit of that as well as we move forward. So, all right. Well, let's just join together in prayer this afternoon. Father, thank you for this time together. We're so grateful that we can come and just have this time together where we focus on the outreach efforts of different things that's going on, opportunities that you give us, Lord, to serve you, and certainly those that will come and bring us some news and updates and just introduce us to some ministries that's in our area. And so things that we want to really pray about and really consider in our hearts to make a matter of prayer in order to be able to support them and help and those type things. So thank you for the missions heart of this church, and Lord, just continued efforts of the missions team, and we ask God that you continue to guide as we endeavor to put everything that we have into sharing the gospel around the world and certainly locally in our community. So bless this time together, and it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay. Who's going to go first on the testimonies? You guys? Come on up. All right. South Dakota.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do. Okay. I'm pretty loud, so. Okay, so last year at the missions conference, we had a preacher came over here from Cornerstone Baptist Church in Gentry, and they are into Indian reservation ministry, going to help preachers and all of those, all of their people on the reservations to come to know Christ, and they do all kinds of different ministries. One of the ministries they do is kind of like Operation Christmas Child, and where they fill up shoe boxes with things that children would like, and they can get away with like putting maybe soaps and shampoos and stuff in them because they're not going through customs. But they then deliver them to these reservations and give them to kids in need. So we got an opportunity to go with them because we got really excited about that mission. So we'll just maybe, I don't remember how this works. Jackie, which way do I click? Down. It is not downing. Ah! All right. So when we got there, it was a 16-hour drive there, and the next day we went 16 hours back home. So it was a very fast trip because there was a snowstorm coming in, and they don't want us to get stuck in snow because that would not be chill in South Dakota. And so we got up there. Their church is very different than ours. They don't have any windows or...
It's pretty much a trailer house almost. It's just no windows because there's so much crime there where people
break in.
Reservation that break in, they steal a lot of stuff. So that cars, vehicles aren't really safe either.
Yeah, it is really rough. There's not a lot of really good there. So like you see those chairs there in the background, and that's in their sanctuary. They don't hold church like we do. They don't do worship like we do. It's kind of more like a Bible study, Sunday school kind of, if they do get together. Oh, sorry. I went last second with Operation Christmas Child stuff, so. All right. So here are all of the presents. They put them in trash cans, but they are in shoebox type things. Oh, there it went. Rob Matney is the guy with the sweater vest thing on. He's the one who leads this, and really cool guy. But that's all the gifts. So we did, part of the gifts went here to this church in Lower Brule, South Dakota.
Lower Brule, and then also branching out to Wyoming and Montana as well.
Yep, and then they did take some shoe boxes to New Mexico. And so our church during VBS did provide over $600 to this ministry to help with shoe boxes. So we took them all in there. We didn't get to hand out presents at that point because the snowstorm was coming. This was on a Thursday
night. Probably around closer to 9 to 10 p.m.
So we didn't get to see their church members and the children of Lower Brule come in to see the gifts. We just got to deliver them, but we were told they were very excited. So here's like K through fourth grade like box. So they just kind of put what, a little bit of maybe what it would be like. And then in the bigger trash bags, they had coats, backpacks, and the backpacks were full of more school supplies and gifts and stuff. So we were really cool just getting to see that.
That's their preacher in the green shirt too. His name is Pastor Chris, and Elijah's their kind of like second preacher, youth person.
So preacher right here, and then here's the next one. They are both Oklahomans, and Rob Matney had Chris go to South Dakota, and
Chris came from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Elijah came from Ardmore, Oklahoma.
and they kind of, God put on their heart that they were going to get to stay in South Dakota, and they're kind of just, there. They're like, oh, it was really cool hearing their story.
They were only supposed to be there for a summer, but then apparently it's become 4 years.
Yeah, so if God calls you to a mission trip, you might just get to stay there forever. So you never know. And Chris was a lot like me. He thought that missions would take you to Africa or to Peru or somewhere else. But, here in the United States, there is a huge need for missions. In Lower Brule and in the Crow Creek, which is a lot of Sioux territory, it is like a different country over there. It is not like it is here, and it is really harsh-looking houses. Crime rate is huge. Suicide is huge. It's a whole different world. He had a homeless community. He's bringing them in to sleep there at the church during some of the harsher winters, but had to stop because they were bringing in drugs, and there were too many needles and other things coming in, and he had to shut that down. He does have a food ministry, so they do get to go in there and get food, every warm meals. They're trying to...
They have like a mini pantry off in the closet behind there, too. And they also make clothing for people in their community, too, and they're also a little room.
The preacher's wife does that ministry. She's really sweet. And so they're just redoing this building. They are going to have a mission soon to kind of redo.
That's their sanctuary right there.
Yeah, this is their sanctuary where everything happens. And they're redoing the floors right now. And there's going to be a picture in just a second. That one.
Yeah, that picture was the preacher. They used to have carpet, old dingy carpet, like we have at the old building. Anyways, he was using like some chemicals to scrape up the carpet.
Acetone.
Well, before it was other stuff, but he went to acetone afterwards because that was just all he had left. So he was scraping it with like a metal scraper, and what he found out that was some rebar underneath it. So when he's scraping with a metal scraper, it sparked, and it just caught all that side of the building with fire.
And it went around him like a bubble, he said.
Yeah.
He was covered in acetone. He fell in it.
And where he fell, he broke his arm too. So in our picture, there's like a big scar on his arm right there where he broke it, snapped. So he started like hobbling along, kept on falling down when he was trying to get up.
It was broken at that point.
Yeah, but he thought he was on fire because he was covered in acetone.
And it was blue flames, he said.
Yeah. So he was trying to get to the back door, trying to get out, and all he could think of was just take off his clothes because he thought it was on fire. But usually in that little community, they only have 1 or 2 firefighters. But that day, they were actually having firefighter training, so they had 14 on call.
And they were there immediately. They
Yeah,
saw
so,
the flames.
and then they said, sir, are you sure that you're in the fire? Because you don't have anything, no hair is singed, nothing.
And he didn't have any
So-
smoke in his lungs when he got to the hospital. They were like, you weren't in a fire. And he's like...
It's almost like a Daniel in the fiery furnace type thing.
And,
with him.
And before this, he had been wondering, he was like, is this where I'm supposed to be? God, nothing's moving. We're not getting a lot of church membership because the Indians believe in Indian magic. They do not believe in God. They are very resistant to the gospel. And he's like, is this even where I'm supposed to be at? And is all of this for naught? And God saved him from this fire. And he's like, maybe this is where I'm belonging because God's there for me. So then we moved on to Crow Creek the next morning to their school. And we started unloading. There were 5 churches from this area that went. We had this church, of course, Cornerstone. We had Center Point in Oklahoma.
And we had a couple more churches. I can't remember.
Yeah, there's another one in Oklahoma and then another one in the Gentry area. And so we all kind of got together. It was really cool. We were in a van with like 3 preachers, getting to hear them talk for 16 hours. Awesome. Pray for your preachers.
Definitely.
There's-
You hear all the struggle that preachers
Oh
go
yeah,
through.
New
No
Life
way,
Ranch.
definitely.
That's
Yeah.
it. So we borrowed all kinds of trailers and church vans from other places. So here we are unloading. Our 6-year-old came with us. They were a little hesitant about that, but we have a cool kid, so it all worked out. They love him. So we unloaded into an elementary. This school is all the schools K through 12 all together. So we were trying to separate, like this is this is going to the middle school, the inside went to the elementary school, and then we took the
I think it was
upperclassmen.
9 through 12, K through 1st, and then 2nd through
Yeah.
I guess 8 or whatever.
So we were trying to separate them all out. So here we are in the gymnasium of their school, and the little kids were practicing their Christmas program, and they were singing in Sioux language, and they were singing Silent Night, and it was just so cool, like just hearing them. So they had all their decorations, and all the kids were just like watching us, and they were so excited because this is their second year doing it. This is us prepping for the high school and middle schoolers, and getting all the boxes ready to hand out. I don't know if any of you know what Operation Christmas Child is, but it's very, very similar, and you're going to be handing them out. It was really cool being on that side of it, just handing boxes out to all the kids. And the teenagers, you know, they'd give you the, you know, looks you would
They're
think.
typical teenagers.
They were like,
They're no emotions.
but then you gave it to like the middle schoolers, and they were a little bit more smiley, but you gave it to the elementary kids, and they're like, they were so excited. It was so cute. Not that the high schoolers probably didn't appreciate it, but it just, you know, their facial expressions were very much a grump. It was kind of cute. They were just like, we've been drug into here. So we were giving out. Here's Shane doing it. To that K-pop kid. So we gave out all these gifts, and it was really fun. And then I kind of like, you know, some of the stuff that might be in there, puzzles and socks and brushes,
And even for the high schoolers, they even put screwdriver sets and
sewing
just
kits.
actual life tools, pretty much. Because I don't know if you got a picture of next to the school.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
That's coming
We'll,
up.
we'll throw that in a minute, but
That's one of the blue guy in the blue shirt.
his name is Keith, right?
Keith, and he is a preacher near Locust Grove in a little Indian church out there. So here are the kids, the little elementary kids. They were dressed in their little Christmas outfits. They had Christmas trees like all through that school too. It was so
Each
cool.
class had a Christmas tree.
And they were like, they had us go through the school. They're like, hey, come look at all of our Christmas trees that we all like decorated. And so we were like, okay. And then we were like going like in it like all through it. And then like I got cornered by I guess a superintendent and a teacher. And they're like, what are you doing in the school? And I'm like, I'm supposed to be here. Don't kick me out in the cold. Oh yeah, and these kids were like, can we pose for a photo? And then like one of them's like, I blinked. And I was like, it's okay. So they were adorable. And that's the new principal right there, and he allowed us back in. It's sometimes really hard to go on reservations because, like I said, they don't really like the gospel being told. So the kids and the teachers seem to really love this guy, and he allowed us in again, and we're always a little bit weary. The new chieftain they have is a Christian, so he's allowing us into their school and let us be on there, which is really great because I mean, there was like at one point during COVID where if you didn't have an Indian card, you didn't get to go on that reservation, and you, not at all. So they were really sick. Then there was a lot of sick out while we were there. This was in December,
Yeah, just
beginning.
7th and 8th of the beginning.
And they had a lot of kids out sick, so we had to leave a lot of the boxes there, and then they were going to distribute them to the children who were out. And so
See,
this,
these are the houses. A lot of these kids that go to the school are orphans, so they don't have family anyway. So
This
they
is-
actually build houses right there along there, but
that's
they
right
live on
next
their
to
own.
the school.
But they always have an adult guardian there too, whether it's sponsored through the school or just maybe just a random foster type thing. So there's a lot of orphans in that school where they had to actually build houses next
And,
door.
I mean, it was like so close. I remember I was like, why are there houses so close to the school? Wouldn't that be a security concern? And they were like, well, that's where the kids live. And most of them are orphans, but some of them are there because their parents are in jail or their parents are so far on drugs that they had to be taken away. It is, and there were a lot of those duplexes right there next to them. And it was like really hard to think about that because those presents we were giving them was all they were getting for Christmas because there was nobody else. And from what we heard from some of the preachers from the reservations, like, I mean, they're in there for murder, for drugs, for breaking and entering. I mean, there's so many reasons why these kids end up here, and they're just trying to get them through education and hope for the best because it's rough on there. So here we are leaving the school, and they are having their own missions conference coming up on February 24th, and
There's
this-
a guy who runs the whole Native American type thing that does all these mission trips
and
for all of them.
so
So
they-
he's branching off in New Mexico, Wyoming, Montana, trying to get more churches involved so they can do more mission work on the same days, just spread it out more.
Yeah, because they have new churches coming up in North Dakota this year that are wanting this help. So they're having this day for training to talk about the missions, opportunities, and if, and what's great is, I just said, there were 5 or 6 of churches that went to this, and our church, they were part of the mission here conference last year, and a lot of us got to go to this and see it. So it's really great seeing all these churches get together. So if you ever have a mission that you guys are interested in, get a hold of that church, because they might say, yeah, let's get you on board, just get on there. And so with these, I think it's just a really great ministry, because it's a different world on these reservations. Like I said, it feels like you're in a different
It's just 16
country.
hours away, but it feels like it's in the middle
Right.
of a tribe of Africa almost. It feels like it.
And one of their missions this year is going to be going to Oklahoma, to a reservation out there. So, it's close as well. So if you guys are interested in that, they are doing it. He just got this new name that I might have come up with. So on the 16-hour trip back. But they are having it, and Rob Matney, get a hold of him, and it'll be at Cornerstone Baptist Church off of Floydmore Road here in Gentry. And definitely get with your missions opportunities, because worth it. Yeah. I don't know who's next. Oh, I'm next again. And Regina and her son, Nicholas. So I'm also a Operation Christmas Child leader here in this church, project leader. There we go. And I'm also on the community relations team for Northwest Arkansas. I'm the only community relations person. So if you guys want to join the year-round team, they need a lot of help. We need a lot of help. So anyway, this isn't just totally OCC for your church. If you do have questions, I can answer them for you later. But our church did go to Dallas. That is the closest processing center for shoe boxes in our area. So here's Nicholas. He was helping me with boxes at the end, and we would put them in and take them out. And this is not all the pictures. Me and Allison took probably over 200 or 300 between the two of us. So this is only 30 of them. But you go there, and you have to go through the boxes, you check them out, make sure that there's nothing that shouldn't be going, liquid shampoos and stuff like that. Regina will have more on that, because she was part of that part of it. And or checks and money. Gift cards from McDonald's cannot go to Africa. It doesn't work that way. Please don't put those in shoe boxes. All right? Also knives, not allowed. Breakable china to 2-year-olds, don't. We learned a lot while we were there. If you haven't gone to Dallas or to one of their other processing centers, definitely do it, because it's a whole different experience in itself, and you get to learn a lot for your own church about what could or shouldn't, or new ideas for your shoe boxes. So who wants to go first?
We ended up going this year, or past year, the day after Thanksgiving, since I work and I'm off when the kids are on break. And you have to be 13 years or up to go to the processing center, since it's a factory. And it's we have assembly lines. There'll be one person that'll take the money out, and then we'll have somebody go through and look for war items, anything that's liquid and stuff that's just not supposed to go. And then every few minutes we'll pray over the boxes. We'll put our hands on the box, and we stop everything that we're doing and pray over the boxes. And which most of the time I spent taping the boxes and taping them back up, and then put them in. Someone would scan the boxes, and then they would put it in a big box, deal with different age groups, whatever it was, if it's boy, girl, ages 2 to 4 deal. And then Nicholas would we would put it in the big box, and then Nicholas would basically tell him what you did.
So my job was to pretty much just after I get the boxes, I would just put them into the different age groups. There was 2 to 4, and I think it's 5 to 11, and there was, I think it was 11 to 14. It was pretty much a really simple job. After box gets 15, I would go over and put it on the conveyor belt, and then there was this bell that I rang.
And everybody would go.
Okay. Yeah, that's about it.
And then whenever they got a whole entire like truck full, and then they would blow horns, and all of the center would go, "Yay!" So like this sign that's up there right now, that's like how many have been processed through the day, where they're going, where everybody that is working there that day is from, and it's a lot of fun. And getting to pray, like me and Nicholas were down here by the boxes and lifting them up at the end, and when they would stop to pray, I like being down there because it's like you get to like touch a whole bunch of boxes, not just like the one in front of you. So it's just like, yes, I will pray for these children and their families, because each one individual box is going to have about 10 people learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ, and then they get to be in a different program to through the Greatest Journey, and they get to learn more about Jesus. So getting to be a part of this part of the process is definitely worth it. If you want to get a hold of, I know all the ins and outs of OCC, so come find me if you want to know more. And we've got, like I said, spaces on our team that need filled, need logistics people and people who know how to do graphs and charting and all that stuff that I'm not good at. So, but it's definitely all the churches in the area. There's a lot of them that do go down to Dallas. You can ask any church, and they'll probably stick you on a line to go with them. Like we went with FBC Gentry, and there was another one, but I can't remember which one it was. But we went with them last year, and this year it just didn't work out because we went the day after Thanksgiving. But just get with your area churches, and they'll definitely help you. Go with them. Go to the processing center. It's very humbling, and as much hard work it is, and your feet hurt and your fingers hurt from scanning, it was worth all of the pain for those kids. So definitely do it. Thank you.
I am Sheila. Sheila's, everyone remembers Sheila in her prayers. Her mom's in hospice, and so just remember them. So they asked if I would talk about the pantry. So, 3 years ago? Has it been 3 years? It was before COVID. We opened up a church pantry, and we actually, the Lord laid it on my heart that I think we needed one. And so I prayed about it, and I talked to some people, and they were like, do it. Go do it. If you think that the good Lord's laid that on your heart, go do it. So I did. And I talked to Amy, and Amy was like, my dad's got a cooler. And I was like, well, I don't need it to work. I said, I just need, to be able to open the doors. And, it's the big refrigerated cooler thing out there that, it didn't have heat or air in it, but the doors worked, and it had shelving. And so we had a mission day here, and in a day we had that pantry up and a little roof over it. And, it was pretty, we were pretty proud of that little pantry. And little did we know that pantry has really reached people, and there's a lot of behind the scenes of that you probably don't get to see. We as a church don't get to see, but we stock it as a church every month. I think starting last month we did hygiene items. This month will be something different. But and Sheila's really good. She keeps track of she keeps track of everything, and so I know that we served 11 families through our pantry with Thanksgiving baskets this year. She had people to leave if they wanted help, at Thanksgiving, and so we fed 11 families. Since then, also, I didn't think we needed it heated and cooled, but we couldn't store certain foods in there in the winter, and we couldn't store certain foods in there in the summer. So Jim and Rocky worked tirelessly putting heat and air in our pantry. And so now it's heated and cooled, and we don't have to be so picky about what we put in our pantry, because those guys jumped in, and we didn't even have to ask twice. So they ran electricity to it, and it's pretty legit out there. Bibles. I know that Sheila has put Bibles in, and there has been some Bibles taken. They have a prayer request box in there, and she puts it in there, and I know that she lets women know these people will put this in the prayer box. Please pray for them on our texts. So it's a thriving little ministry. It's not huge, but man, it certainly is important, and I'm thankful that our church has that. And I think for a long time we had information back there on it. If people that need help, just direct them our way. We'll try to help them. And if it's not in the pantry, we'll try to get it for them. Just keep that ministry just in the back of your mind, and help donate. Bring some stuff to it.
Yeah, and for anybody that doesn't already know about our pantry ministry, it's open 24/7. So they just pull up and they go get what they need out of there, and we restock it. So I can't tell you how many times that I have, and during my weekly, normal weekly rounds, I don't necessarily come out this way that much, but I tell you, just about any time that I do, I nearly always see a car parked here that's taking advantage of the pantry. So it's a great thing. Do we have anybody else that was going to speak to anything else that we did in terms of just mission trips this year? Okay. Just real quick, and most of you are really familiar with a lot of this, but we do as a church support Dustin's Dream, and so they've got some trips that are planned this year. One of them leaves the first week in February, but they'll have some 2 weeks of medical missions that you're interested in that. And when I say medical, you don't necessarily have to be, a qualified medical person of some sort. You can go and just serve and help. When I was in Guatemala, I took blood pressure. Thanks to me being diabetic, I know how to prick the fingers and take the temperatures and do all that stuff. So you can just do little things like that help a lot. And then they have prayer rooms that they pray with every patient that they see. So you use an interpreter to do that. But it's a great thing. So remember that. They were here last year. Hiding Place Hollow, Western Benton County, Mike Phillips and Paul Bearfield. Paul and his wife were here last year, and we continue to help support them monthly, and then we also provide baskets. And this is a ministry where it's a huge vision, but they are building houses on this particular piece of property for missionaries that are home on furlough, or they're just home on break, or they're just home trying to figure out what they're going to do, whatever it is. And so they have 4 houses completed right now, right? Or they got their 5th house completed, okay, and all that is completely debt free. They most of the work, all the work is donated, but lots of donations come in to buy materials and things of that nature. So really neat deal. And we provide the welcome baskets for any of the new missionaries that they have scheduled. And I talked to Paul just not too long ago, and he was very, very appreciative of what we do from that standpoint. The families that come in that receive those baskets that we put together and take out there are so appreciative of that. So it's just a really neat kind of an explanation point on the end of everything that they do for them. So that's a cool deal. And And then I don't. What do we know about Pastor Samuel and the church? Yeah.
Okay, I'm Melissa, and I'm so shy. I'm always talking about something, but the other missions that came last year was Pastor Samuel Ogney, and he's from Lynn, Massachusetts, and we got involved with them several years ago, going up there working with the North American Mission Board, and they're a Haitian church. We worked with them, but we worked with other people too, but we just kind of hung on to them, like they just kind of connected with us, and he came and visited with us. We provide monthly help them kind of, it's very, very expensive to like rent a spot for a church up there. And so we help them monthly with that. And then we took a Christmas love offering throughout the year, and it went directly to Haiti. Like he has a connection. His uncle, I think, is the pastor at a church in Haiti, and there's no missionaries there. Like you can't get missionaries into Haiti. And so we got to provide that. And it was like over $3,000. I can't remember how much it was. And so we just found out this week that we'll be going up there July 22nd through the 26th, and we'll be having VBS for them. So kind of put that in the back of your mind, because that'll be really fun.
Thank you. All right. Any other updates from local missions that we have done this past year? Okay. All right. The agenda says we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back. If you want to take just about let's do 5, 6, 7 minutes, okay? Break, and then we'll be back, okay? Thank you. Check 1, 2. There we go. All right, welcome back, and we're going to keep things moving. I did mention, just in case, we have some people that aren't in here a lot, so we do have some refreshments back there, and then just on the other side of this wall through either exit are the restrooms back there. So just so everyone knows where they're going, okay? So I want to welcome Jeff Pearson. Jeff is the Executive Director of Compassion Northwest Arkansas, and primarily based out of Springdale, right? And then also there's some other things under that umbrella, lots of other things, including Feed the 479, and so y'all welcome Jeff as he comes and shares with us.
Thank you, Jimmy. First of all, I just want to thank y'all for giving me the opportunity to be here. And just that first part was an amazing blessing to me. The focus you guys have on missions and the things that you guys are doing on missions is just extremely encouraging. I was telling you that my brother-in-law is part of Samaritan's Purse, which does the Operation Christmas Child. He's been there for 25 years. And it is an amazing organization, but it doesn't work without churches like this getting the boxes together and being willing to go to Dallas and being willing to be a part of the process as they're preparing to bless all these children around the world. So thank you so much for that. When I was first asked to come, and you guys may or may not be interested in this, and if I get started in this and you're not, just somebody wave and I'll move on to something else, okay? But I think Jimmy had talked to Dennis Smiley. He is my director of Feed the 479, and I kind of have a story in the last 4 years that I've transitioned into ministry. I was in the business world for 30 years, spent 24 years at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I was the chief financial officer there for the fundraiser. My job, I woke up $5 million behind every day because that's what we had to raise every day to fund the hospital. And that fell squarely on my desk. One of the things that I had to do every day was approve the transfer to the hospital for all the checks that were clearing that day for the hospital. Danny Thomas, I don't know if any of you remember who that was. When I first started at St. Jude, I did the new hire orientation. I'd ask if anybody had ever seen Make Room for Danny. Well, about 90% of the hands go up. When I left there 24 years later doing the new hire organization, I said, have you ever heard of Danny Thomas? They looked at me like I had 3 heads. So, I mean, over the course of that quarter of a century, the people that had seen that show just got out of the workforce, I guess. I mean, they just aged out of the workforce. But it was an amazing place to be. And the way Danny started the hospital back in 1957. He started the fundraiser in 57 and the hospital in 62, and it's 2 separate organizations. And I worked for the fundraiser, and we were basically the bank for the hospital, and Danny did that because he didn't want doctors making financial decisions, and he didn't want business people making scientific decisions. So he separated the two of us, okay? But Dr. Rogers, I was at Bellevue for about 20 years in Memphis, and Dr. Rogers used to always say, anything with no head is dead, and anything with 2 heads is a freak, okay? St. Jude is somewhat of a freak because you had 2 separate organizations that ran down parallel tracks, but it works. And it was one of those things that just showed the genius of Danny back in the 1950s. But there was just a lot of cool things about being there. I'll apologize to you now for the mail and all of the solicitations that you've gotten. Every time you turn on the TV, there's something there that's probably attempting to make you cry. We had some really good folks that did our marketing and did our storytelling. But I can tell you from the inside perspective that the stories you hear are true. And if you are one of our supporters, the money that you give goes to the right place. It is truly, genuinely a special place. And it was great to be there for 24 years. Got to do some really cool things. When I started, we were raising about $125 million a year. When I left, we were raising $1.7 billion. So I was there during a massive growth spurt during the fundraising. We hired, I don't know, have you ever heard of Susan G. Komen? The Pink? We hired the lady that painted Susan G. Komen pink to come to St. Jude, and over the next 10 years, that's when our branding just went off the charts. I mean, we became the most trusted brand in the United States for 7 years running, and we're still going, okay? But I mean, there were just a lot of things we were able to do during that time. You meet some really cool people. How many college football fans we have? I got to be on stage and share a stage with Lee Corso, okay? I got to spend time with Lee Trevino. I got to meet a guy in Dallas that I could give you his name, Jim Level. Anybody ever heard of Jim? He's the guy who was handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald when he got shot. And got to sit and spend 2 hours with him, just him talking about the story after story after story. So being at St. Jude, you just got to do some really neat things, but you got to see human nature, its best and its worst. We'll tell you about one story that will kind of crystallize it and bring it all together. We had a patient family house that we were about to open up that one of our corporate sponsors had donated the entire amount for. They wanted to roll it out during Christmas one year. They had a major Christmas special. It was on one of the major networks, and we had at this house in the middle of Memphis, we had basically all a TV production company come in to do a TV special just to highlight this house. And they brought every celebrity that they were contracted with to come in and be a part of it. So we knew who was going to come in. It was a big day for us. So if I told you this person's name, you would know it, you'd recognize them immediately. One person, we knew that the parents and the kids would be really excited to spend time with. So we contacted their agent and set up a special place for them to come in, interact with the kids. And some people are a little bit hesitant to interact with kids just because they're kids, but especially sick kids. I mean, our kids, absent medical intervention or miracle from God, every one of our kids at St. Jude were going to die. Okay, I mean, it was catastrophic. So that made them a little bit even more difficult for some of these celebrities to interact with. So, but we made it very simple for them. They would never be alone with them. And we had this laid out there. Well, we thought it was the grandest thing we'd ever created. Well, this person shows up the day of the TV special in a limousine, pulls up next to the stage, stays in the car until the lights come on, gets out of the car, gets up on stage, they have the program. When the lights go off, he gets back in his limousine and drives away. When you're dealing with people, whether it's in churches, whether it's in business like that, regardless of the type of situation you're in, some people come just to be seen. We had somebody else walk in that day and walked over to the director of the house, walked up, his name was Ken Van Franken, walked up to Ken and said, "Ken, when I asked for water today, I want it to be 41 degrees. Not 42 and not 40. And I said, "Ken, what'd you say to her?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." At the end of the day, I came up to Ken. I said, "Did she ever ask for water?" He said, "Yeah, a couple times." I said, "Well, how did you check the temperature of it?" He said, "I stuck my finger in it." Some people come to be seen. Some people come to be served. But at the end of that day, this was before we had opened up the house because it wasn't completely ready yet, but we let the kids in so they could enjoy the common areas of the house. And my job that day was to make sure that everybody was out of the house before we cleared it, secured it, and locked it up. So I'm walking through what I thought was one last time walking through the house, and I hear a voice in one of the common areas, the lady's voice. And I look over and couldn't see her, but there was a lot of big furniture that kids would like to play and everything. So I go back behind the furniture, and there's a lady sitting on the wall with two of our kids in her lap, reading them a book. And I looked up, and it was Amy Grant. And she looked up at me and was just horrified. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've stayed here too long. I said, ma'am, you stay as long as you want to. Yeah, I'll go back over here. When y'all get ready to leave, I'll lock up, but you stay as long as you want to. Some people come to be seen. Some people come to be served. Some people come to be kind. Every day, let me back up. My dad told me one time when he was trying to make sure that he built in financial acumen into his son, he said, son, you can only spend $1 one time. That's a true statement. It stuck with me. He probably told me that when I was 10. We can only spend a day one time as well. Every day we get up, we've got a choice. We can go in it to be seen. We can go in it to be served. Or we can approach it to be kind. It's our choice. God gives us that choice. But we don't ever get another chance at today. We got one shot. So I got to see a lot of different things in the realm at St. Jude. But in 2009, we changed CEOs. And I told you we had two separate organizations because I wanted to tell this part of it right now, because the CEO that came in was one of the most liberal people I'd ever met in my life. I mean, I don't know how many of you remember when we were growing up. A lot of you look like you're about my age. Growing up Sesame Street, there's always this thing. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong, and they shine a spotlight on it. As he started changing the culture of the organization, I was that one thing. I was the only one that remained that had any kind of a conservative heart to them at all, whether it was political, whether it was social, whether it was spiritual. When you listen to the media now, we've got this thing called the LGBTQ month, okay? Well, we had that every day. I mean, that was really what our organization had become. Not the hospital. Hospital didn't go that. The hospital is still an amazing place that does amazing work. So I wanted to make sure I distinguished those two. But the fundraiser was going down this path. And it got more and more difficult for me to be a part of it. And in 2012, my wife comes up to me and says, Jeff, it's time. You've done enough. You're leaving it better than you found it. This has been a great career and even ministry for you. But it's time. The problem was I felt like it was my ministry. And I didn't feel like I had been released. Gentlemen in the room, let me just get very personal with you just for a second. Most of our wives hear the still small voice from the Lord better than we do. We need a sledgehammer. They need a whisper. If your wife ever tugs on you and says, God's telling me something, do everything you can to make that a reality. Don't do what you can to explain it away. I continued to be at St. Jude. I continued to work every day and would get deeper and deeper and deeper into this oppression that I was going into every day. And get worse and worse and worse. I mean, it was just something that was just taking over me. But I saw some good things God was doing, and I felt like He was still working, and I was singularly focused on that. Well, in 2019, my wife and I celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. And have any of you ever heard of SLU, Student Leadership University? I'm on the board of Student Leadership University, and Mindy told me she wanted to go to Israel with SLU. Now, the executives at SLU still haze me about that. 30th wedding anniversary, and I take my wife to Israel with 150 students, okay? But the first 2 nights there, we're at Sea of Galilee, and I don't know if it was the Lord waking me up to pray or if it was waking me up because of the time change or whatever, but at 3:30 in the morning, both mornings that we were at Sea of Galilee, I'm out on the balcony watching the sunrise over the Sea of Galilee because I didn't want to wake my wife up. And I'm praying. I am pouring my heart out to God. God, show me something. I'm miserable. You know what I'm going through at work. Show me something. I need an answer. 2 days later, I leave the Sea of Galilee thinking, how sorry of a person am I? I cannot get a prayer answered at the Sea of Galilee. Okay? So, what is wrong with me? We go on with the rest of the trip, and we finish the trip at the Garden of Gethsemane. And one of the things the group allows us to do, gives us about 40 minutes walking around the Garden of Gethsemane, and SOU's been there so many times, they've got us in an area that they say, if there are 2,000-year-old trees, they're here. So they have us walking around in there, praying in there. And Mindy and I would pray out loud at times. My wife Mindy and I would pray out loud at times. Sometimes we would pray silently. And at one of those times I was praying silently, holding her hand. I said, God, all right, I give up. If you're not going to tell me, tell Mindy what I need to do. The women know exactly where I'm going with this, okay? Dr. Rogers, again, my pastor at Bellevue, used to say, it wasn't an audible voice, it was louder than that. I experienced that at this moment because I said, God, if you're not going to meet, tell Mindy. And he said, I did 7 years ago. It took the sledgehammer. But I walked out of the Garden of Gethsemane a free man. First time in 7 years. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't know if I was going to do anything else. But I knew where I was leaving. I'd been given permission. Go back, meet with my CEO. Again, I'm the odd man out there, so he's not all that upset. The board didn't like it because I'd been there so long. The board loved me. The CEO was, I was the one holdout. So, but I told him, I said, this is going to be the easiest transition you've ever had. I'll stay as long as you want me to stay. I'll train whoever you want me to train, but we're going to start this process right now, and I'm gone. February 14th, 2020, I walked out of St. Jude the last time as an employee. 3 weeks later, the world shut down with COVID. I was in a 24/7, highly volatile, highly stressful situation before COVID that God got me out of before it went nuclear. Had 3 friends of mine right after that say, Jeff, you need to read this book called Halftime by a guy named Buford. First time I read it, I'm thinking, okay, I missed something because this is not an encouragement thing. This isn't an encouraging thing at all. It's supposed to be going from success to significance. That's what it's talking about in the last part of your career. So I say, okay, I must have missed something, so I'm going to go back and read it a second time. I read it a second time, and I start getting back into that cloud over me because I'm wondering at this point, have I had my significance? 24 years at St. Jude, all of the scientific breakthroughs that happened, all of the kids that were healed when they're, all of the things we were able to do, is mine behind me? But we were right up to Father's Day in 2022. Mindy and I are going to buy my dad a Father's Day gift and a birthday present because his birthday is always right around that time. And I started telling her, I said, I'm not feeling so good. She said, and she's a medical professional. I said, all right, what's wrong? I told her, kind of heavy in my chest, arms feeling really weird. So she takes a hard right down Poplar and drops me off at the ER. Well, it's COVID, so she drops me off. She has to leave. I go in, they draw blood, they do an EKG and everything. Well, I said, well, you're not having a heart attack, so go back out here and we'll see you in a minute. 6 hours later, I'm still sitting there, and I call Mindy. I said, Mindy, come get me. I'm not staying here anymore. She said, not the way what you described. If you're going to come home, you got to walk, because I'm not going to come get you. So I get my feelings hurt, and I hang up the phone, and I sit there some more. Well, they take me back probably another couple hours later. It's in the middle of the night. And they keep me for 2 days. And Sunday, Father's Day, a cardiologist that's really good friends with myself and my doctor I've seen for 30 years. So, I mean, we're all buddies. He walks in, and he said, look, we're going to do a heart cath. We're going to figure out what's going on. So I'm laying on the heart cath table, and Dr. Shala walks in, and I looked over at him, and I've run marathons. I've run half marathons. I was a loyal oatmeal eater for the last 30 years, okay? And Dr. Shala walks in. I'm looking at him. He's about to run that cord up my wrist. And I looked over at him, and I said, man, I should have just had the donut, shouldn't I? He said, well, I'll tell you in about an hour. I go under, and he comes back up, and when I wake up, he's sitting there staring at me. He said, yeah, you probably should have had the donuts. Heart was clean, clear, everywhere but this one artery called the LAD, otherwise known as the Widowmaker. And he said, this is just a genetic thing that happened. It wasn't anything that you did. But I had 98% blockage in the LAD. His statement to me was, the typical first indication of this condition is a fatal heart attack. He said, God saved you, because normally people don't get that discomfort with that. They just go. So I'm laying on the table saying, okay, God, you should have taken me. I'll read it one more time. I go back and read halftime one more time. And it was like the scales fell off. I don't know if I needed to go through that in order for God to speak to me. But again, it was one of those, it wasn't audible, it was louder than that. He said, Jeff, if you're going to go from the significance you had, that I blessed you with, by the way, to a greater significance, you've got to go from the temporal to the eternal. In the next 3 weeks, I was offered 2 jobs. I hadn't floated a resume out, hadn't done anything. We were waiting for my daughter to have twins, and I wasn't interested in anything but that. I got 2 job offers. One was with the Southern Baptist Convention, Eternal. One was with the second largest not-for-profit in Memphis that was going to pay me 50% more than what the Southern Baptist Convention was, and it was 10 minutes from my house. The Southern Baptist Convention was going to be in Nashville. It was almost like God laid in front of me and said, you asked. Take whichever one you want. I'll bless you with either one you want. But if you're serious about wanting significance, I'm giving you this. Easiest decision Mindy and I have ever made. We packed up, we moved to Nashville. I don't know how many of you keep up with the Southern Baptist Convention, but we were there for 15 of the craziest months that ever existed in the Southern Baptist Convention. But the last week I was there, I thought I was there just to guide Ronnie and Gina Floyd through the darkest times of their life. Okay, we became fast friends. I had never met them before when we got up there, and became fast friends as we walked through that journey with them. The last week I was there were things that had happened at the Southern Baptist Convention that, when I had it laid out on my resignation letter, I showed it to 3 attorneys, and they said, Jeff, if you turn this resignation letter in, your face will be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal above the fold in the next 2 weeks, because you'll be the whistleblower. They had made a couple of motions that they didn't understand, a couple of votes that they didn't understand, and what they were about to do is they were about to break just about every IRS law and fundraising code that they could with the way they were going to pay for some of the things that were going to occur. And I walked them through, and I said, you got to do this, you got to do this. But I sat down with the officers of the executive committee, and I said, guys, I can tell you, a guy doesn't have to tell you this. He doesn't have to show you why he does things. I mean, he's God. I mean, sometimes we just got to suck it up and do it, okay? But this was one of those times he laid it in front of me. He said, Jeff, this is why you've gone through this. And I walked in there to them. I said, guys, I am here for this meeting at 8:30, the last part of January 2022, and we've got to get this right. I said, I'm going to get it right, but you guys have to get this right with me, or there could be a really bad thing happen in the Southern Baptist Convention. And for the first time, I'd given them that lecture 3 times every time they voted on this. This is the time they listened, and they reversed everything before anything ever happened. And it went back, and I looked back and I said, okay, God let me go through some things at St. Jude to teach me and to build into me the IRS code as strict as he did, because he needed me for that day. And I'm sitting there, knees shaking the entire time, not because I cared about the folks in the room. It's because it was so obvious that you could look back on the last 10 years and see God's hand through it all. God then gave me an opportunity through that to build a relationship with Nick Floyd. Nick knew what I'd done. He picks up the phone, called me. He said, Jeff, I don't know what I want you to do, but I want you here. And I came here and started working at Compassion. First time I've ever gone to an organization that I didn't have to fix. It was running. It was hopping. They were doing some great things, feeding a lot of people. But again, it just kind of needed fresh eyes. In the first month I was here, we had a retreat, and I wanted us to be very intentional about what we were doing. So we built the retreat around a quote by Fred Smith. He is the founder, CEO, and chairman of FedEx. He said, leaders get ahead and stay there by increasing the standard in which they judge themselves and by which they're willing to be judged by others. And we laid that out in front of us, and I said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start increasing the standard. And we picked 5 areas: the number of people we fed, the ministry we accomplished, the impact, the dignity, and the resources. That was going to be the focus that we hit. In the last 2 years, 2 years ago, we were feeding at our pantry averaging about 80 people a pantry. And the people that were running the pantry were saying, look, we're just so busy, we can't squeeze any more people in. I said, okay, what do we have to do to get to 150? And again, looked at me like I got 3 heads. We finished this last year, we're averaging 140. What we did is we just changed the process up just a little bit. It didn't have to be fixed. It just had to be tweaked. First day I walked up to the pantry, it was in March, kind of like a day like today, cold, wet, rainy. Pantry wasn't going to open for another 2 hours, and there was 50 people lined up outside. Looked like a Depression-era soup kitchen. It broke my heart. I said, okay, we've got to do something about the dignity in which we do this. We're doing a great thing. We're feeding a lot of people. But we've got to figure out a better way. That year we fed 130,000 people. Dennis Smiley, the guy who runs the pantry, implemented a reservation system where people don't have to wait now. They can go online, they can make a reservation for a specific time and walk in and walk out, and they don't have to wait. So that was something that was important to us. We wanted to increase ministry. The 5 months before we had this strategic planning meeting, the 6 months before we had this strategic planning meeting, we had 5 professions of faith. And again, I'm going back and dealing with this. The only way I can increase my significance is go from the temporal to the eternal. If all I'm doing is feeding people, I hadn't done that. So we go out and we start recruiting Gideons. I don't know how many people y'all know Gideons. I mean, they are animals, okay? Especially when it comes to spreading the gospel and sharing the gospel. And we, in our conversation room, you don't have to go through the conversation room and talk to anybody about Jesus if you come get our food. We're going to feed you. But we're going to ask you if you want to be prayed with, if you need something, if you'd like to talk to somebody. And if you say yes, there's somebody there waiting for you that's either going to speak English, Spanish, and at times we've got some people that speak Marshallese. I mean, we've tried to be very intentional about that. The next year, at the end of 2022, we had 88 professions of faith. The end of 2023, we had 187, 112% increase. All we did was just we didn't do anything special. We just made sure there were people there to talk to them, and we made sure that we were diligent to say, do you want to talk to somebody? And God just poured the blessings out on us. We also wanted to increase the impact. And what we meant by that was, I believe churches, I believe organizations, I believe ministries. Am I good on time? When do I stop? 5 o'clock? Okay. I believe people, organizations, ministries, when we're talking about doing things and we're talking about God putting something on our house, you talked about the pantry. I'll get to that in a minute, but we'll help you any way we can. Okay? We've got resources, and if y'all ever have anything where y'all don't have enough resources, you call us. We'll help. But I think there's 2 questions you need to ask anytime you walk through a situation. Is I believe you look at opportunities of, am I the only one that can do it, or can I do it better than everybody else? And if the answer to either one of those 2 is yes, I think you have to find a way to do it. Because when God calls you to do something, He's going to give you the people to serve, and He's going to give you the means to serve them. But I think we have to, one of the ministers on staff at Bellevue, when I was a young adult, I was probably in my late 20s, early 30s, he told me one time that just shocked me to death. I come from a very, very legalistic background, that if your pastor ever asked you to do something, you said yes. You just don't question it, you say yes. This guy told me one time, he said, the people that I can tell that are the most mature are the ones that'll tell me no. Because they know what God's called them to do. And they know what they've been gifted to do. And you can't stop them from doing what they're doing. But if they say yes to too many things, they don't do any of them effectively. So I think we all have to look, and thank you guys for doing this missions seminar here. Thank you for your heart for missions. Thank you for your passion for helping other people. But my challenge to you here would be, find out what only you can do. And it doesn't mean only you can do, you're the only one that can do it anywhere. It may be in Highfill. We're the only ones in Highfill that can do this. Or we can do it better than anybody else. And at that point in time, you turn it over and trust God. Okay, God, you've shown this to me. Find a way to make it happen. I can't produce it, but find a way to make it happen. I think there are several things that we can take away from our opportunities to serve the Lord and serve in any area that He's given us. One of my heroes in the Scripture, it may or may be somebody that you've heard of. I mean, you might not have ever heard of this guy. His entire biography in the Scripture is 2 verses spread over an entire book in 42 words. Shamgar. Shamgar was in the time of the judges. Between Joshua and the kings, he's somewhere in the middle there in Judges. And it was during the time when the Philistines had started to become a adversary to the children of Israel, and they were the terrorists. Okay, I mean, the terrorists you think of today, they were the terrorists back then. And what the Bible says about Shamgar is he killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Let me turn that into, I'm from Northeast Arkansas. I was raised in Northeast Arkansas. I need to turn that into Northeast Arkansas language. He killed 600 Philistines with a sharp stick. Okay? I love that. I have tried to model my career, my service in the church, basically my parenting around those 42 words. Because what did Shamgar do? He did what he could, where he was, with what he had. That's all any of us can do. He had 600 Philistines come through, probably over the course of 6 years maybe. But he took care of what he could. He used what he had. He did it where he was. I think there's a lot of times we go through our life and we are talking about the reasons we can't do something. We're talking about the impediments we have to serving. We talk about all the reasons why the answer has to be no. I think we can all do what we can where we are with what we have. And I think we all have to fight the temptation to ever show up to just be seen or to be served. If we as God's children ever walk into any location, any building, any ministry, any business, I don't believe we have the right to go in there without looking for someone to serve. And it may just be a smile and a hello. I mean, think about the number of people in our world today that are on antidepressants. I mean, it's off the charts. How many of those people could you bless just by smiling and saying hi? Because they're so lost and they're so lonely in their own skin. It doesn't have to be a big thing. You don't have to pull a $20 bill out of your pocket and hand it to somebody. It may just be a smile and a hello. We've been given marching orders by the king. You guys are doing it. I mean, you guys are doing it as well as anybody I've ever seen, and you're passionate about it. I heard it the first part of this meeting. But I think we all can check ourselves, and I do want to offer whatever we can do for the pantry. Like I said, this past year we fed 229,000 people. Everybody doesn't have to do that. We're just blessed to have that kind of facility, and people come to us. But however we can help, we'll help. I'll leave you with this. When I was at St. Jude, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon, raising money for St. Jude, and it's the one in Washington, D.C. And during the week there, we went around and looked at some of the sites of D.C., and we went to the Tomb of the Unknown. And I'm just crazy enough that if I don't understand something, I'll ask. I sat there and watched the changing of the guard. And it was precise. I mean, it was impressive. It gave you chills. But what happens is when they're changing the guard, one from the lead team goes up and talks to the leader of the other team, and they say something. And nobody hears what they say. And all of a sudden, they start doing something. I'm thinking, what did they say? I mean, that set something in motion there that was really cool. What did they say? So the guy who got off the guard, I just kind of weaved my way around and, dude, thank you for doing all that, but what'd y'all say? I mean, I didn't know if he could even tell me or not. I mean, I didn't know if it was state secret or something, but I mean, he just looked over and smiled. He said the same thing that we've said since the flame was lit. every time we transition guards, the one leaving tells the one coming on, face to face, no foolishness, orders haven't changed. We're 2,000 years past the time when Christ went back. He told us how we were supposed to handle things. He told us how we were supposed to treat people. He told us how we were supposed to love the poor, how we were supposed to share the word, how we were supposed to serve the people around us, how we are now his hands and feet because he is gone. Orders haven't changed. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for allowing me to share what we do. We are blessed to be able to be a part of Northwest Arkansas, and I'm going to let you in on a little bit of inside baseball here. Jimmy said that I'm with Compassion NWA. When I first started here, and again, I'm coming from St. Jude where branding is everything, okay? I'm with Compassion NWA, and we have Feed the 479, and that just sounds a little bit bipolar to me, okay? I mean, there's two ways you can describe this area. One of them is 479s, one NWA, and we couldn't pick, so we chose them both, okay? Tomorrow, we're going to roll out to our congregation a rebranding that it is now going to be Compassion Compassion 479, Feed 479, and we're going to be pushing towards a brand that is We Are 479 because we want to let the entire area know that we're here to serve you. And we want to do it the best we can, however we can, with what we have, where we are, and do it the best of our ability. So, Jimmy, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Wow, what amazing testimony, and just to kind of get to know him and get to know the organizations he's been a part of, and now what he's doing here in the Northwest Arkansas area through Compassion. And I think I can say this because I know several people that actually do go and volunteer. So they can always kind of come and sign up to volunteer, and there's a training program that they send everybody through and that kind of thing. So if that's something that you're really interested in, then be sure and make contact with them and do that. So, all right, we are come to our second break. So let's take about I think it's a 10-minute break, 15-minute break maybe, and then be back here in about 15 minutes. Okay, thank you. All right, welcome back to our next session. So, hope you've enjoyed everything you've heard so far, and we're just going to keep the ball rolling right on down. We have Jerry Bolander here with Arkansas Baptist State Convention Disaster Relief. And over the years, I've actually known several people that were involved with this organization. And I have not necessarily personally been involved with it, but so I'm real interested to see what's going on in our area, and you know, if there are some that would be involved or would like to get involved with that, just how they would do that. But you welcome Jerry as he comes up and shares with us today.
Hi, well, thank you for having me. My name is Jerry Bolander. I was raised not too far up the road at Parsons, Kansas. Went into the Air Force, came back, and then went ahead and hired on with IBM right there in Parsons. Then they moved me to Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Then they moved me to Omaha, Nebraska. Then they moved me to Bentonville. And I finally had to retire after 32 years with IBM. I do have taught driver's education. I've sold insurance for a little while. So if you get to that retirement age, don't think you're going to stop. We tend to die if we start stopping, all right? I also got opportunity to become a chaplain for the Benton County Sheriff's Department. So every once in a while you might see me on the roads out here in the county around you, riding with a deputy and being a part of their lives as well. Who here had ever heard of disaster relief? Okay, that's pretty good because a lot of people have not. I used to call it the Baptist Convention's greatest secret, because very seldom did you hear about it, because, for one thing, you're not supposed to be real boastful about what you do, right? You're supposed to have a lot of humility and things like that. And so we didn't advertise or talk about it a lot. But unfortunately, no one knows what you're doing, and nobody knows what you can do, that you're there to help them when they need it. I came to Arkansas with IBM in 2004, and I joined First Baptist Church of Rogers. And First Baptist Rogers was the first church that I ever felt was very mission-driven. I mean, it seemed like somebody or some group was always going somewhere, and all of a sudden I jumped on board with that. I've gone on many, many international mission trips, a lot of them to Nicaragua and that area, but I've gone all over the world as well. Absolutely love it. One day somebody said, "Jerry, don't you think people here need some help too?" Yeah, they do. But also my standard statement was, I'm going to the places most of you would not ever go. And it was true. I go to very remote areas, hike in, walk in, ride horses in, mules or donkeys, whatever kind of thing. But it made an impression on me that, yes, I should start considering that. So I started going with our student ministry on their local mission trips and being more of a part of that. And then one day in 2017, toward the end of the year, someone, I don't even remember who it was now, walked into our church and said, "We need help. We need to have an emergency training on feeding for the Arkansas Southern Baptist Disaster Relief." And I go, wow, I don't even know anything about it. So we learned a little more about it and things like that. And that's how I got started in this. This was because of Hurricane Harvey in 2017, which was a Cat 4 hurricane that went across Louisiana and into Texas. Very shortly after that, I had my first deployment after I had this training. Went to Katy, Texas, which was just outside of Houston. We were a mass feeding unit, feeding 2,000 meals per day, twice a day, per day. But I never saw anything. Even when I drove in, there was no evidence of disaster, of destruction or anything like that. And we were not a situation where people came to us for food. And I go, there's something, I need to know why I'm here. And so I asked if I could ride out with people one night and see the situation. They took me to a street where there had been a lot of damage, and our crews, disaster relief crews, were working on the street, helping these people out. And on the front lawns, which were very large lawns, there was debris, there was junk from the house all the way out to the street, piles of it. I mean, you can't see over the things. As I got closer, and by the way, there's a huge truck coming down, a semi-truck, dump truck, with a big grappler hook on the end that's picking all this stuff up and putting it in the back of this dump truck to be hauled off. I started looking closer, and I realized it wasn't just trash. It's pictures, it's toys, it's clothes, it's furniture. Some of these people, that's all they had. It's now laying out there on the yard, and it's going to be picked up and thrown in the trash. Everything they have is gone because it was a terrible tornado, a lot of flooding, water up to the ceiling, this kind of thing, to where everything is gone. It's very, very difficult to recover from these kind of situations. And I started crying because I realized that wasn't just trash. Some people have lost everything they've owned in this one incident. Many, many people don't have flood insurance because it's very expensive, and it never floods, right? And I just decided I needed to do something more. Shortly after that, I was deployed a second time to Orange, Texas, little community out near the Louisiana border over there. And this time I was just with a team, a feeding team, that was feeding the workers, the volunteer workers and things like that. And they would come in, we'd feed them. They were also housed in that facility. And there was a couple, a team walking around. They always came in and out. And I finally asked them what they did. And they told me that they were an assessing team. And so when people would tell us that they needed help, these guys would go out, review the situation with them, talk to them, get liability release waivers signed and stuff like this. And so I asked, could I ride out with them one time? Because I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about what I was supposed to be doing. And they let me, and here I am. I'm standing in somebody's house, and they're describing to me, the Christmas tree used to be over there. This used to be Grandma's house. All the photos were in these shelves over here and things like that. Once again, very emotional time for me to start understanding these people are going through things I've never been through, and I honestly don't understand. So once again, I realize there's something I need to do more. So since then, I've been to, I'm going to have to read them off, Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, and West Virginia on situations. The Southern Baptist Disaster Relief Organization is about 70,000 strong across the country. The disaster relief was started in 1967 by about 6 men that went up to a disaster situation with the little pots of flames of things and handed out coffee and things like that. We are the third largest disaster relief organization in the nation, just under the American Red Cross and Salvation Army. And an interesting fact is, when you see the American Red Cross or Salvation Army handing out food, it was probably cooked by us. It's like 90% of the situation, it was cooked by disaster relief teams. We have people that are still employed, retired, men and women from all stages of life. We're not first responders, maybe call us more like second or third responders, and we're fully funded by Arkansas Baptist Southern Convention churches. We do not charge for any of the services we render. All right, so who's been on a mission trip? Who's been on an international mission trip? Dominican, okay. Give me a rough idea, what did that cost you to do? What did it cost for you to get to go there? Okay, probably thousands. I do international mission trips all the time. $2,000-3,000 is not uncommon to go internationally now. How many wish you could go on missions, right? This is a mission opportunity. I promise you, you'll go on to things that, and into areas you're going, oh my gosh, I never knew this was here. I never knew this happened in the United States. I never knew people lived like this in the United States. This will cost you about $30 to register, and then you want to buy a couple of shirts and things like that. This is one of the least costly mission endeavors you're going to do. Once you're deployed, we take care of your food and your place you're going to live. It's not going to be a hotel because, for one thing, when you go into a major disaster, the hotel rooms are all taken by local people that need something, if they're even functional. You know, they may be out of power. You know, they may not be capable of doing their own job. You do have to go through our training. The $30 includes a hat. It includes an ID card. You do have to go through a background check. One of the primary questions I'm asked is, why a background check? After a disaster, looters, sightseers, bad guys, they come out of the woodwork. The local authorities have to secure these sites a lot of times. Most first responders, police, fire department, rescue workers, recognize our shirts, recognize our emblems, and they look for our ID tags. Otherwise, you don't get into these places. Even if you have a situation where you can volunteer, it's not an easy thing for you to do, to volunteer, because they don't know you, they don't know your capabilities, you don't know where to go. We as an organization are invited to come in. We never self-deploy. We're invited to come in, and they give us a section or an area to work in, and then we start doing what we need to do that. You do have to go through our training, and I'm going to give you a brochure after a while here that tells you what the next training sites and dates are for this coming year. He just told me, I've run a chainsaw all my life. That is true. A lot of you have. Most of you are come out of the rural community. You've been farmers. You have to do these things. Doesn't always mean you do it safe. It doesn't always mean you're doing it correctly. We will require you to go through the training. Basically, it's teaching safety. It's not necessarily teaching how to run the chainsaw in general terms. You will have to wear the safety clothing, helmet, face mask, ear protection, chaps. All that is provided. You don't have to buy it unless you want to buy it so that you're not wearing somebody else's sweaty old things, right? But it is all provided. You don't have to go out. You don't have to bring any equipment. You might have a saw that is special to you. You're welcome to do that, but you don't have to. We provide everything you need. And you'll see some of this stuff here in just a little bit as well. After the training, you'll be assigned to a team. Excuse me. My pastors have taught me that I have to have things printed out or typed out, or else I'll keep rattling and it doesn't always make sense. So you'll be assigned to a team. A team leader, and we're very military oriented, is called a blue cap, and he will be wearing that. An incident command person, and I'll explain these a little more, is a tan cap. The typical worker is a yellow hat. This one happens to be a chaplain's, but so that's mine. And then there's a white hat. The white hat is the incident commander of the situation. For us, mayor, first responders, other people will help tell him what they'd like us to do, but then he runs us over that situation, the area that they've asked us to work in. Some of you will tell me you can't commit to a week or more to go do things like this. I understand that. Most of us are retired, but several are still working, and when they do, they're taking their personal time, their personal vacation, and things like that. So we're all very devoted to what we do. Some of you will tell me you got children. I just can't leave. I can't afford to be without work for this week and things like that. Okay? So over the last couple of years, we've had at least 3 major incidents right here. So why couldn't you come out on the weekends and give us a hand? Or maybe late at night may not work or stuff like that. But when you had some free time, why couldn't you come out and help us in? Again, some of you are saying, they asked for volunteers. I can do it. That doesn't work real well. You stay part of an organized group like us. We have things aligned. We have things set up. We know what we're going to go do next and things like that. So I hope, even if you don't feel like you get to devote a week or more, things like that, that you still would join us and help us out when you can. So there are 5 basic disciplines to begin with. One of them is a chainsaw unit. One of them is a communications team. One is a feeding team. One is a flood recovery, which you might hear referred to as a mud out. And there's a shower and laundry unit. There's also another unit being formed and talked about right now about a box ministry. What's a box ministry? I mean, all those others probably made sense to you. What's a box ministry? Well, during a big disaster, big situation, it's crazy. Cardboard boxes becomes a premium. You can't find them because everybody needs them to help pack up their homes and get things out, get things to where they're drier and stuff like that. We have trailer fulls of cardboard boxes, shipping type boxes. We come in with, we bring in tape, we bring in some magic markers, we give them out to people that need them. And in some cases, we have some people that'll even walk in with you and help you box up stuff like that. So very cool. You know, we kind of think outside the box, so to speak, at what else is needed. The next question I ask is, what do I do first? Most people choose the feeding team or the chainsaw team because that's kind of what's the biggest visibility is and things like that. And those are good things. Some people go, oh, I want the feeding team because it's so easy. Well, let me tell you, it's not so easy. We have the capabilities of feeding 10,000 a day. And that doesn't start at 7 o'clock and try to get them ready, right? We oftentimes are up at 4, and then the pot's still got to be scrubbed when everything's done. So sometimes we're out there the longest time frame, things like that. Every role is vital. Every role has its fun and difficult options. Our Baptist Convention disaster relief leader is Randy Garrett in Little Rock. His assistant is Greg Hutchison, and then Katura Quimby. Like I said, we have kind of a military kind of style, how we work. I said there's a white hat. There's also a green hat. And a green hat is a safety person. All right. See if I can get this done here. All right, so this is a typical kind of chainsaw trailer. Again, if you want to bring something, you're welcome to, but we have the equipment we needed. There's a variety of different chainsaws and safety equipment as well. This is the other side. We carry wheelbarrows. We carry what I call gorilla carts, 4-wheel carts. Really nice little items. Another piece of it, we may have power washers. We may be carrying generators, things like that. When we draw into an area, we go in to be very self-sustainable. We don't want to go in with whatever. And on a big situation, we may carry in 100 to 150 people just from us. We don't want to go in and be a burden on the community. They don't have food. They don't have water maybe. Maybe they're out of electricity totally when we roll in. So we carry huge generators, and you're going to see that here in just a little bit too. So that is a shower trailer, which is one of the disciplines, a shower laundry unit. That's not for the public to use. That's for us to use. Again, we don't want to be a burden on anyone else. And of course, for volunteers, we want to keep you as comfortable as we can so that you want to come back. Typically, a shower unit is a laundry unit as well. So that's what a typical laundry facility would look like. Smaller, because we do one load at a time of someone's personal items. Washer and then a dryer below it. On the left is one of those generators I was speaking of. We go in, we can power an entire church and things like that. Again, we roll in, maybe there's no power. We hook up our generators and equipment to help take care of us and get things going. But it's also a blessing to the church, because a large church like what we typically get housed in is also trying to be a donation center. People bring stuff in, or things are sent to them for people to drive through and pick up necessities that they need as well. This is a refrigerator or freezer truck on the there that we also have. There's that truck again. Again, another big generator, and the truck's back there behind it. This is a typical idea of where you might be staying. You should have a cot or an air mattress, and this is a church building. And again, we're probably powering it at this time. You're going to be very close confined. Don't have a lot of room. You can't take a lot of stuff. When there's a shower laundry unit there, we recommend about 3 changes of clothes. Wearing one, a change of clothes, and one set of clothes in the washer dryer units. This is a location in Hammond, Louisiana that we were at. We actually got an aerial view of it. Let's see if I can do this. So these are refrigerator or storage semi-trucks that are loaned to us or given to us to use at the time. There is, let's see, the shower units on this situation was over here. When there are parking back here for some of the teams, they come in with their big trailers. They try to just leave them hooked up. But we also about took over that area as well. This is where there is some cooking units right back here. I'm sorry, this is not a very good picture. But it also has food supplies and things like that we get for storage. Typically, the American Red Cross or Salvation Army provides the food. We order it and ask for it, and then they bring it to us. Feeding teams. This would be a typical job. This gentleman is keeping an inventory in this truck, or maybe he's pulling or staging stuff for the next round of food. Oop, went the wrong way, sorry. This is a typical dining hall environment for us. Sorry. We will either come in with enough equipment to cook if we need to, but if a church or facility is available to us, we'll use that. And in this case, we're using the church's kitchen. Very different kind of things are going on. Again, we're talking about cooking for thousands of people at one time. Okay, and of course, somebody has to clean up as well. Here we're storing food out on the parking lot until we need it. Okay, sorry. Went too far. All right, this is a typical flood situation. This was in Iowa. All that junk is corn husk and stalks, things like that. This was an area, how many have driven from this area up towards Omaha and Sioux Falls? You know how high the interstate is off the road. In this particular flood, when the river flooded and the levees broke, the interstate was covered. We were at houses that were totally immersed. I mean, the rooftops were underwater. We came across situations where railroad ties were on top of houses where it had floated up there, and then when the water came down, it goes, and when the water receded, then they left railroad ties on top of houses. It was quite the thing. How many know that your stuff inside the house floats? In a flood like this, items, even in your refrigerator, will float. So many, many times when we try to get back into the house with the homeowners for the first time, there's stuff blocking the doors. We have to force our way in. So we have to try to force our way through windows, which of course the wood and stuff is all soaked up, and they're all bound up. So it's very hard to do this. Again, these are just situations I'm showing you that I've actually been in. These are my pictures. I've actually been in these situations. The debris all gets thrown out, especially in these situations. All the sheetrock comes off, all the insulation comes off. There's no way possible to dry out all this stuff and get it to where there's no risk of mold starting. This is in Kentucky. This was a coal mining community. They had fences out in front of the yard and not very big yards. And you can see what we've had to do. We had to try to pile it up the best because we can't block the roadway. By the way, I actually met a coal miner's daughter. Again, these are situations that we're just showing you how much debris comes out. Refrigerators, if you had a last minute run out and you weren't able to empty your refrigerator, don't open that refrigerator when you come back. It is horrible and it can't be salvaged. We duct tape them shut, something like that, and we put them out on the street to be hauled off. Oh, by the way, I was going to tell you, you got to top Jeff and I. Jeff said he had talked to the man that had been handcuffed to Oswald. Remember? Do you even know who we're talking about? You remember the news reels where there's a little boy on a grassy knoll and he's being covered up by him? I know that little boy. So now you got to top that one. He doesn't even know. In Kentucky, we found this was in a river. Truck was in a river. There were utility trailers in the river. So during the flood with Noah and the ark, did all the water come down from the sky? No, some of it came up from the earth. Did you know that? Okay. In these coal mining areas, they told us water came up out of the earth in some cases because the water was in the coal mines and was being forced back out. So it was a very unusual kind of deal. In this area, in the mountains, the Smoky Mountains stuff, right in the middle of that building, they built this over a little stream. It never flooded. Well, it flooded this time. You can see that the center of the building has got a horseshoe shape like that. And this is a church that we went in and just visited with them and talked to them about things. This is a typical kind of environment. This is actually in a little basement. In a big river, especially like a muddy river situation, that house would be full of mud and silt and junk. So again, we get the house prepared for people to come back in and rebuild. We do not haul off stuff. We don't rebuild. There are some like Baptist nail benders and things like that. There are some groups that, but we don't do that. We prepare it to be cleaned and dried out and sprayed for mold reduction. And that might mean we're going in with power washers inside your house and just go ahead and clean it all out. So this was a basement, and I think there's one more picture. Oh, what's that white stuff on that couch? It's mold. It's white mold. I have in a situation in Iowa where again the houses were totally engulfed. One of the houses I went in, I walked in, and I look up the wall, and there's white, there's blue, there's black. And there's all kinds of different colors of mold. It was really strange. But it was all over the roof. The last place in Iowa that I had to go in and visit with, we had to walk through water to get to it. And that's kind of rare for us. Again, we can't do much until the water recedes, so typically the water's pretty well gone by the time we get there. But this was a situation. In fact, this was the house I was just describing that had all kinds of colors of mold going up the wall. So during the summer, when this happens, which is kind of typical how it is, it's hot. You've left the house locked up. You can't get back in for a couple of weeks, and that's when the mold, it all gets really engulfed in it. I'm pushing it, Jackie. Oh, there we go. Again, this is a tornado hurricane situation. You can see all the bricks that are loose and about to fall down. This steeple was in really bad shape. This was very typical, especially down south where they have a lot of trees. This is the backyard, and you can just see that it's just engulfed with tree branches and things like that. Unusual things. That is a branch sticking through a house. Here's a fun story. This is in Oklahoma. This place we were working at had about 5 teenage boys hanging around. And they weren't their sons. The father was like a baseball coach and kind of a mentor kind of person, things like that. But the boys started helping us. Well, when we get done, kind of like Jeff said, that the Gideons would go in and they would talk to them and pray with them. Well, when we get done, we offer to do this as well. We actually present them with a Bible, and we all sign it, so they have a little memory of us being there. But we ask them what their status is. So I don't know what you guys have done as far as the final answer, right? If you were to die today, would you go to heaven or would you go to hell? Well, a lot of Central American countries, they'll kind of giggle at me and they'll laugh and point down, right? Well, all these boys are all standing around, and this man. And the man, and I kind of focus on the adults because that's probably the right thing for me to do. And so the dad says, I want to ask Jesus in my heart. And then I looked across, these 5 boys were standing there, and I kind of looked at them. I said, what do you think about this? He says, well, I want to too. And they just went right down the row. And it was just the neatest thing to get to pray with all these young teenage boys and this man about this. And of course, they've got to see us sweating and working our rear ends off. And what do we get paid? Nothing. And that we're often asked, why are you doing this? What's this going to cost us? And we're going, well, Jesus told us to do this, and Jesus has already paid the price for this. And so it helps us lead into things, and then we'll ask if they have things they want us to pray about and things like that. So this one has great memories for me. We do have some artists. This was a 3-branch kind of tree that we had to take down, and it's kind of hard to see. Can you see the crosses? Okay. So many, many times we leave some symbol of us as we go when we leave. This is one of my great guys. He's standing on a deck. You can see the tree has fallen down over the house, crushed a refrigerator or freezer or whatever it was that was out on the deck. And, of course, we're trying to figure out how we take this off without damaging the house any more than we have to. Again, just indications of how much destruction we walk into and try to, I have crawled over trees and debris piles to try to get to the house to make sure the house was okay or that people are okay. I call these FEMA trucks because typically they're privately owned, but they follow disasters around, and FEMA pays them. So this is like I was trying to describe to you earlier, big semi-truck going down the road and all the debris getting stuffed in the back. So there is a grappler up in there, a man with a kind of a crane with a grappler hook, and he's loading both these, and they haul this off. So that's a big situation where FEMA has been able to get in and get involved. Again, like I described, sometimes you just have to start somewhere and start making a path to get yourself where you need to go. There's a second step to that same situation. This is actually in Springdale. You can see this is one of the famous pictures. The car was on the side up there, and I think it came from that spot, but I don't remember for sure. Again, unusual things. You've all heard about a straw stuck into a telephone pole or something like this. Well, this was a twig. Poles, there were like 5 vehicles in front of this house, and poles, all of them were damaged right there. I couldn't find my picture, but one of the coolest picture I had was there was a tire and rim on a trailer, a utility trailer, and a 2x4 that was sharp on one end went clear through the tire. I couldn't find the picture. I thought you'd like to see that. That is a car, what's left of it. This is actually Wynne, Arkansas. Wynne actually had a lot of special places in our heart because, I don't know if I told you, I go to First Baptist Church of Rogers. Pastor West George actually started in Wynne, so everybody knew Pastor George, Dr. George. So this is Wynne, Arkansas. This is the football field, and all the turf is gone. This is the high school building, and it's totally destroyed. And then the tornado went right through that way, right there, and then kind of curved off to the left, out to a lake or a little bit nicer area that they have up there. So that's Wynne, Arkansas. It's hard to see, but that is a piece of plywood through the side of a house. I don't know if you noticed, all the power meters are pulled in these situations, so when they start restoring power, you don't get power back to your house accidentally without them having knowledge. This is Rolling Fork, Mississippi. So Rolling Fork happened this last year, and then Wynne happened and Little Rock happened right after that. So my team, we came back from Rolling Fork. We were actually in Little Rock, heading back from Bella Vista, heading back, and we probably just missed the tornado going through there. So we got our stuff cleaned up, repacked, and when we rolled back out and went to Wynne. Rolling Fork, which, if you don't know, our great president called it Rolling Stone, right on the news. He said, Rolling Stone, Mississippi. And I go, okay. So he didn't even know where he was at. This was probably the worst situation I've ever been in. Most stuff was totally gone. And it's a poor community. Most people wouldn't have had insurance. And you've seen it on ABC, Good Morning America, a couple of times here in the last few months. But we really did not do as much as we normally do because they just brought in excavators and bulldozers and just started piling stuff up. There was nothing left for them to get a hold of. We also do things for community service. This is at Camp Siloam. We often relieve the cooking staff for a couple of times. And this is a missionary team. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. This is a missionary family that I got to be very good friends with, and they allowed me to take a picture with them. We also do things for the University of Arkansas during Missions Fest, which is basically their kind of introduction of the new incoming freshmen to the religious or faith-based opportunities on college. So I've worked with Ryan. I knew Ryan from before. We're actually cooking fajitas, and that's one of our specialties, actually. We do a really good job of fresh fajitas. They get it hot right off the grill. Okay. This is one of our latest projects. We call this the Blue Beast. This is an old bread kind of truck. We've made it into a food truck. And so we have this design. We haven't actually used it yet, but it's designed for us to do rapid response. So as an example, the fire department has a huge apartment fire, or the police or rescue are out for an extended amount of time on a situation. Our intent is we're going to get notified, we're going to throw some food and things in this, and we're going to go out and support the agency. So that's still in the works right now. My badge says I am trained on almost everything, and that's true. I can go in and I can be an aide in any aspect that I need to, but my primary role is chaplain. And I'm not a preacher, I'm not a pastor, I'm a chaplain. Pastor, I'm told pastors talk and chaplains listen, and that's my role. Many of you would actually outshine me talking about the Bible than me, but my heart is to go in and serve people. You heard Jeff a little while ago talk about go to serve. You don't go to be served or to have your face known and things like that. We go out to serve. So this is just a family that we came across. He couldn't talk to me. So he has a little pad right there that he would write me questions and we would talk. In these situations, there's always a couple of people that kind of touch your heart. So we would go back and we'd check on them every once in a while. He's a Vietnam vet. Again, this is one of my typical partners when I go out. Again, we go out as the chaplain assessing team. We found out that some people couldn't get to where they were handing out food, so we would go and grab food, and then we'd drive it back to some people. This is, and I'm going to show you a video in a little bit of this. This is one of my proudest moments. This is down past Pine Bluff and the Dumas area over that way. Old houses, typical kind of. A crew of ours was there working already, and the crew that I was assisting with were rolling in, and we noticed smoke coming out of this house. The crew that was closest already was running down to see what they could do. People were telling us that there were 2 old ladies in there. 2 of our guys ran into this, and I mean, that's kind of what it looked like when we got there, that dark black smoke coming out. One lady was confined to a wheelchair. They found the wheelchair, got her in it, and got her out, and the other one they made it. There's actually, it's hard to see. Ryan is falling apart on me. There were actually a bunch of puppies in this house. Our guys got these puppies out too, and one of them actually resuscitated a little puppy dog. This car here, we actually got our front end loaders attached to it and drug it out to help save it. The fire department showed up, and that's part of the video, so I'll show you that here in a little bit. Okay. All right, so Jackie, can we get a couple of the videos? Again, it doesn't matter. I'll just start with whichever one that is. There we go. Okay, so this is one of my pet situations is Panama, Florida. They had trees through the house, could not possibly go in safely to start getting anything out. We typically are very cautious about these kind of deals because of how risky it is. So I got this team from Georgia to come in and start getting it. You can see how long. There was about a third more of that sticking out the other side that they cut off to get to start building plug. And then now they're going to go ahead and cut this somewhere in here. I want you to see they're wearing protective chaps, protective helmet. He's wearing gloves. Again, all these are things we have to take care of and be cautious of. We actually had to have 2 skid steers on this one. So this again was kind of a unique situation. Jackie, you can just grab another one.
Hampton,
This is in Louisiana.
Louisiana, and I just had to show you this one. I'm going to walk around and show you the amount of destruction at this location. Alright, so this is a second entry into this home that they've already got it cleared off because the homeowner had some medical issues that they had to deal with. But I'm going to show you what the front of the yard looks like. And yes, it is a big front yard. You can see that tree up there snapped off, you know, what, about 20 foot up in the air. And so this house was totally impassable on arrival.
This is an assessor up here working for me.
The family did have to vacate and get an older mother to a safer place. One of the things I'm trying to show you is from all these trees, and I'm going to show you more of them, that none of them hit the house. There is a tree back there in the backyard on that side. And I know this is jiggly, but I'm walking along trying to get the whole scope of this for you. Alright, so when I first started, I was on the front of another driveway, which is, of course, got the power lines as well that you saw down. Okay, so this is the other end of that driveway. And as an example, this becomes a priority one for us because of the power not going to be able to be reestablished until those trees are out of the way. And now you can see the trees again fell down all over this area, and again, none have hit this house. They do have power lines over this vehicle here. And this is walking back towards their backyard. And you can see additional trees back there. Now we as a disaster relief unit won't necessarily be able to clean up all the trees because remember, our main focus is to get people in and out of their homes, get power restored, do the immediate things that are required to try to get them back into their homes. You can see a shed back here has had trees go across it, and you can see the root ball right there of the tree that went through the shed. Right. So anyway, I just thought this would be an interesting point to you. The tree count just toward the house and back toward the back here is at 23, and we're not even counting the trees that I showed you earlier as we walk back here. All right. Thank you much. Again, pray for us all. Bye. I'm in Wynne, Arkansas, April the 4th, 2023. I wanted to demonstrate a little bit about what we see sometimes and witness. This is debris in the back of a house that's been totally destroyed.
The
Here, I'll
house
show you
is
the
not
house.
there now.
But I also want you to look and see what's on the ground. There's pictures, and I'm trying to be careful about how I walk here. This is not just trash out here. This is things that were personal things for this homeowner. There's Christmas decorations. There's kids' toys. There's clothes and debris. This is looking on back past their house a little bit. Other houses all the way around here, totally destroyed. This is somebody's shed over here, having the things, items in it and stuff like that.
This is in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. These machines are invaluable to us. If we weren't able to get one in there, we would be hauling those out on dollies, two-wheel dollies, and four-wheel carts that we have. That's what I mean by a grappler. Comes down a little bit. That's actually one of the blue caps that you could possibly work with in this area. Again, this is that fire situation I was describing to you. Fire truck, a volunteer fire truck did show up, but it had one person in it. And he didn't act like he was too interested in jumping in the middle of this. So we did the best we could to help out and things like that. But you can see that black smoke. You couldn't be in that for any length of time. We are very positive these two ladies would have died that day. When we were rolling up, we saw black smoke coming out of the house. You bought the next one, Jackie. Not necessarily. These are all just to help keep you interested in what we do. My time's up, I guess. Ryan, he's just biting on the bit over here to get started. I do have brochures I'm going to hand to you, and they tell you when our next training sessions are, and it gives you the ways that you can connect with us. I also have a few handouts that show what the 2023 time frame what we did this year. There's actually a shot of it too, but it is so terrible looking on the screen, so I printed off a few for you to go ahead and look at. Okay, so I'll have those for you here in a little bit, if you want. Thank you, Pastor.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And lots of great information about the Arkansas Baptist State Convention and the disaster relief program, and just different opportunities. So it's a neat thing. I've never been a part, but I've actually known people that have. I've been part of some other things similar to this. Those nail benders that you were talking about, and some of the building programs, World Changers, where we go and put on roofs and that kind of thing. So neat stuff. Hey, let's take another quick break. Let's do about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and close this out. I just want to take this moment to remind you we are going to have dinner. Okay, so please stay and be a part of that. That'll be in the building across the way. But please stay and have dinner with us, and we'll enjoy some time together. And I know hopefully you guys both can stay for that. And if you've got questions, that you need to ask them specifically, then you can do that at that time. Okay. All right. Let's take a break. All right. Welcome back to our final session of the day, and then we'll get to go eat. And so Ryan's got the tough job of getting us through this last session without us getting too hungry and getting back there. So we got Ryan Scantling. He's with the BCM, Baptist Collegiate Ministries, and he's going to come and share about what the BCM is doing up in our area and possibly how we can get involved. So help me welcome Ryan.
Hey, thank you. I'll let you grab your phone. And I'm sure, hey, thank you so much. And I'm sure if we get done early, the food will be ready, right? Like, oh, perfect. And so my name's Ryan Scanling. I've worked for Arkansas Baptist for the last 10 years now. They literally hired me right out of college, and I've been working on the college campus ever since. It's been the joy of my life. Let me tell you real quickly how I came to faith, and then I'll jump into some of the things God's doing on college campuses. There was a knock at my door when I was 14 years old, and we answered the door. My mom did, actually, and it was a mid-80-year-old woman. And as my mom walks out onto the front stoop of the door, this lady asked my mom a question. She says, "Do you go to church anywhere?" And my mom lied and said, "Yeah, we go to First Baptist down the road," because there's always a First Baptist down the road. And in Yale County, where I grew up, there are lots of First Baptists down the road. Well, this lady knew that wasn't the case because she was from First Baptist down the road. And she proceeded to share the good news of Jesus with my mom. She shared the faith presentation. Any of you that know that, F is for forgiveness. This forgiveness is available for all, but it's impossible for God to allow sin into heaven unless you turn. And so if you turn and trust Jesus, you can have access to heaven. And my mom heard that for the first time, and this lady asked at the end of that presentation, based on what you've heard, would you like to make the decision to trust Jesus as your Lord and Savior? My mom said, "No, I don't think so." She asked one more time. She said, "Well, are you sure? Would you like to make the decision?" My mom said, "No, I don't think so." But what that lady, mid-80s, didn't know was that direct the other side of the door, I was sitting on a couch, and I heard every word of that conversation, and my heart was pounding because I knew there was something about that conversation that I was missing, and it was Jesus. I grew up in a non-Christian family. My stepfather was literally the town drunk, and it took all the boldness that lady had to come and knock on our door to share the gospel with my family. I was in church that very next Wednesday, that small First Baptist Church, Plainview, Arkansas, down the road, and the youth group was about 4 or 5 students, and I became the 6th. And that night, the youth minister volunteer let out a call. He said, "Hey, if you want to connect to the purpose that God has for you in your life and trust Jesus, with every head bowed, every eyes closed, would you look up at me?" And I looked up because I knew that I needed that. My life has changed and never been the same, and so I'm just thankful for churches just like yours all across the state of Arkansas. You may not realize it, there are 1,564 Arkansas Southern Baptist churches. So 1,564, just like you, spread all throughout the state, doing significant ministry in their area. Now, each of those churches do ministry in different ways. Some do great children's ministry, some great youth ministry, some great missions ministry, but we all partner together to do more together than we ever could apart. In fact, those churches worship in 12 different languages across Arkansas, from English to Mandarin Chinese to Spanish-speaking churches to even, back where I'm from, we speak Redneck. That would be a 13th language there in Yale County, Arkansas. And it's just a joy to serve all of you. Each of those churches contribute in a ton of ways. Some participate in disaster relief, like you just heard about, but all of them give to a thing called the cooperative program. You may not realize it, but each Sunday morning when you give, whether it's online, whether it's by putting a check in or you throw cash in the bucket, a percentage of that at your church that your church has decided on goes to a thing called the cooperative program for world missions. Now that's split up. Some of it stays in Arkansas, some of it goes to reach the world and the nations. But the cooperative program funds disaster relief. It funds Baptist collegiate ministry in our state. It funds crisis pregnancy centers all throughout Arkansas. It funds North American missionaries who are planting churches in strategic cities and areas all across the nation. But it also funds international missionaries, folks who are in Bermuda right now planting churches, folks who are in East Asia right now starting churches so that they can be reached for the good news of Jesus. So when you give each and every Sunday, a portion of that goes to support the things that Jerry and I do. I work specifically doing Baptist Collegiate Ministry. I was a part of it when I was at Arkansas Tech as a student, and when I graduated college, they hired me to come and work leading BCM in Conway at UCA, Hendrix, CBC, and a couple of community colleges in the region. 3 years ago, I moved up here to lead the University of Arkansas Baptist Collegiate Ministry. We are one of 37 BCMs in the state. Every community college, every college and university you can think of has BCM. Looks different in every place. When I got up here, I discovered, man, there wasn't an active BCM at John Brown or at NWAC, and so we restarted those in the last couple of years. It has been an incredible joy. If you were to look on a map and try to find a place where you're going to put a fully funded missionary, where would you put it? Now, there are a lot of places to put one. You could put them in Canada where there are significant needs in significant cities. You could put it on an Indian reservation in South Dakota, and that would all be really good. You could put it in China, where, honestly, a lot of our missionaries just got kicked out during the COVID season, and that would be really useful. I'm convinced that the most strategic mission field on earth is the college and university campus, and this is why. Where else can you identify that God has brought so many 18 to 22-year-olds together that they may hear the good news of Jesus? Now, you know this. If anything has a reputation, it's a college or university campus, right? It's got a reputation for all kinds of bad things happening. Oh, people get there and it just seems like their morals go out the window. And I'll be honest, some of that does happen. But churches in Arkansas believe so much in reaching campuses that they placed Baptist Collegiate Ministry right there. Now, I'm not going to lie. There are some other groups doing really good ministry on campus. There are lots of churches, lots of organizations, but we are your ministry. So we are a ministry directly of you. We answer to you. We serve your students. We are there to reach the students on that campus on your behalf. I've been at the University of Arkansas for 3 years, and I tell you, God's done some incredible things. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. I remember my first year, I was on campus and just still kind of figuring out the structure of the University of Arkansas and really how to do ministry there. We restarted a large group gathering at the University of Arkansas. There are 32,000 students this spring at the U of A. If you remember, just 15 years ago, it was 17,000. So the university has almost doubled in 15 years. The university, this logo, is working really, really hard to bring students there, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel as far as reaching them. And so I remember I was on campus, and one of my first interactions with University Move-In Day was actually when disaster relief came and helped us. We partner with them every fall, and they cook for 700 to 1,000 students so that we can just connect with them, get contact information, find out where they are spiritually. There was a student that came to that event that disaster relief cooked for. His name was Nicholas Garrick. Nick was a Texan from Houston area, and he moved into campus, and I didn't know him at the time, but he came through that event. That was the first time that he had ever heard of BCM connecting to community on a college campus, and he had showed up there as lost as can be. His family had no exposure to church, had only been to a church a couple times in his life for weddings and funerals. And about 2 months into school, October, this kid shows up in the front door of the Baptist Collegiate Ministry building. We have a ministry facility in the heart of campus right on Maple Street. If you're on campus and you drive down Sorority Row where all these lavish sorority houses are, we're right there in the middle of that. And he walks in the door and he just starts hanging out. It's great. He meets some friends, gets connected. I get a call later that week from his parents. Now, I sometimes get calls from parents or grandparents asking me to check in on kids. Hey, this person went there. It doesn't seem like they're having a great experience. And his mom told me this. Ryan, Nick has been depressed these first 2 months. He's just been searching, hasn't found friends. This has been the biggest transition of his life, and truly it is. Transitioning to college, leaving home for the first time. And they said, but in the last 3 days, something crazy has happened. And we asked him, what's changed about your life? And he said, man, I just started finding some friends. Like I'm going to BCM, finding some friends, and I don't know, it's just been cool. Over the next 2 weeks, Nick makes the decision to trust Jesus as his Lord and Savior. He's sitting on a couch in the BCM building, and I start a conversation with him, and I just level with him. Hey, Nick, man, have you ever made this decision? He said, no, I haven't. I said, do you want to do that right now? He says, absolutely. Now, after he prays that prayer, dedicating his life to Jesus, Nick looks up and he tells me, he's like, Ryan, I needed you to know, like, I was probably ready to make this decision about 3 days ago. He said, all these folks have been talking to me. They've been loving me. I found a community here. This is the most incredible thing. Nick is now on our student leadership team and has personally led 2 other students to the Lord in the last year. A couple weeks ago, I was hanging out with another student, Cole Myers. Cole's from Greenwood, Arkansas, and Cole's as country comes. I mean, he's from the outskirts of Greenwood, just a good old country boy, but spent his life without ever making a decision to trust Jesus. Popped in and out of church several times in his youth years, but had never made the decision to trust Jesus. He had some friends that were super involved in Baptist Collegiate Ministry, and they start pleading with him, hey man, you got to come. Like, you got to come and get connected to this. Cole made a decision to trust Jesus and now leads our outreach team. Every week, Cole's on campus with 20 other students, just inviting them to churches, to college ministries in town, helping them to connect. Cole, for the first time, just about 3 months ago, had a conversation with a person, and he got to lead a person to Jesus, his own. I mean, an incredible, incredible thing. I believe that the college and university campus is the most strategic mission field on earth. This is why. God has brought 18 to 22-year-olds together at one specific location. It's the most densely populated area in our state, right there, that college and university campus, so that they can hear the good news of Jesus. They come from all kinds of backgrounds, some Christian folks, some non-Christian folks. Some of them come from really broken homes. For some of them, going to university is the biggest escape of their life because they really ran away from some stuff back home. At the University of Arkansas, there are 1,300 international students, students from across the world who come to make that their home away from home for 4 to 6 years. Those students, you may not believe it, come from unengaged people groups, some of them. Places where there are not gospel presences in their home country, but God relocates them right here to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Why? So they can hear the gospel, and I believe so they can take it back to their family. When I was doing work at UCA, there was a student that I met named Waylon Tay. Waylon is a Malaysian student, and if you know anything about Malaysia, it's mostly Buddhist. Waylon gets picked up at the airport by BCM student who's partnering with churches, helping to shuttle folks to their first day on campus. And as he does, he's invited to an international ministry outreach that we did there at UCA. We also do it at the University of Arkansas. Over the course of several months, Waylon makes the decision to trust Jesus as Lord and Savior. It's a phenomenal thing. But Waylon's heart beats for his family, because back home in Malaysia, they had never heard the good news of Jesus. So what does Waylon do? He connects with some of his buddies that he's met through college and university life that are Christians, faithfully following the Lord. And he says, hey, I'm not sure if I'll be faithful enough if I go home alone to share the gospel with my family. Would you take a summer off, and would you come home with me? And together, over the course of a summer, we can meet my family and friends and share the gospel with them. Well, COVID killed his first attempt to do that. But then, in summer 2021, Waylon went back home, shared the gospel with his sisters, with his mother, father, with his grandparents, and with his friend group from high school. Several of those folks made the decision to trust Jesus. When you reach a student at the University of Arkansas or any of our universities in the state of Arkansas, you have significant impact, not just here, but everywhere else. Did you know that 60%, this is a startling fact, 60% of world leaders got their education in American universities? People that go back and become prime ministers in their home country, what kind of job they're going to pursue the rest of their life. It's probably not going to be their final one. What kind of job, what kind of career they're going to pursue. They make the decision, if they're not married, what kind of person they'll marry. By the people that they date, the folks they interact with. They really make the decision on who they're going to become from 18 to 22 years old. And so we stand right there at the crossroads of their life with big flashing signs saying, hey, remember Jesus. Like, consider Jesus in this crossroads season of your life, because he'll change everything about you. When I came to the University of Arkansas, it was on the heels of COVID. I moved in spring 2021. was on the heels of COVID, and just like anything else, it had shut down university life, maybe more so than other aspects in our society. And so we came guns blazing, saying we just want to reach students. Our motto at BCM in Northwest Arkansas is this: we want to give every student the opportunity to encounter Jesus and experience life. Now, you know this about the people you interact with. You can't make a person trust Jesus. You can't twist their arm and make them decide to trust Jesus. So our heart has been this: we can give them the exposure, though, to encounter Jesus. Like, they can absolutely know that Jesus is real, and can have a massive impact in their life. And so our goal is to give every student the opportunity to encounter Jesus, because until they do that, they're not going to experience all the life that God has them to offer. Now, I've had some students argue with me about that. They're like, no, my life is just fine. I'm experiencing life. Man, I finally got freedom. I'm living away from my parents. I'm doing my own thing in my own way. But you know as well as anybody, you're not really experiencing life until you're experiencing the life that God's created you for. So in that, we've just been bold. We want to train students to boldly share the good news of Jesus with their friends. In the last 3 years, we've had 126 students that have made the decision to trust Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Just over half of those have been personal, one-on-one, student-to-student conversations. Let me just tell you a little bit about our process, a little bit about what we do. We have a weekly worship service on Monday nights. We call it BCM Collective because it's students from all types of different backgrounds coming together for a weekly worship, teaching in small groups. That has grown so large in the last year and a half that we added a second service this year. So we meet Mondays at 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. And from the moment a student walks in the door, we're just loving on them, trying to point them to Jesus. We are in a very different context than most of our churches. A lot of our churches are in areas where, yeah, there are a lot of lost people outside, but it doesn't mean you're necessarily getting hundreds of visitors in the room every single week. Well, we are literally right across the street from 32,000 students whose bedrooms are within walking distance of our ministry facility. And so usually on a given week, 10% of the room is visitors, there for the very, very first time. And I know what you know. As a student comes to a college university campus, they usually give Christianity one shot. I mean, they give one shot. I'm going to explore this, see what's going on. And so our art, we want to love students to the best of our capacity. When a student comes, we get their contact information, we follow up with them, and we have a student that sits down one-on-one, face-to-face, over coffee, lunch within the next calendar week, and just says, hey, you want to know what BCM's about? Thank you so much for being there. And their whole goal is to share the good news of Jesus with them and give them an opportunity to respond. Now, they don't always respond the first time, but over many, many months, many, many days, prayer, building relationships, a lot of those students, 126 of them, have made the decision to trust Jesus as their Lord and Savior. Over the years, the partnership between Baptist Collegiate Ministry and Disaster Relief has been incredible. I want to tell you just a couple of stories because that's a really fun one. When I was at University of Central Arkansas serving, the university came to me one year when there was a flood in Vidor, Texas. Were you at that one? There was a flood in Vidor, Texas, and the university came to me and said, Ryan, we got a lot of students from the Texas area, the portion of the state where that flood occurred. They said, and they want to serve, and you're the only one we know that takes trips like that. Could we, send some of our students on this trip? Now, I want you to get this. A secular university coming to the Baptist Collegiate Ministry, campus minister leader, saying, we want to just fill up a bus and send them with you. University of Central Arkansas paid for a charter bus, filled it with students, recruited them, paid their way to go, and sent them down to work with Arkansas Baptist Disaster Relief, where they were working alongside chaplains who were sharing the gospel with them, and they were serving people in that community. The next year, there was a significant flood situation in Panama City, it was. And the university came and said, hey, the last trip went so well. Could we do this again? But we want to double it. We want to send 2 charter buses full of students. Would you help us facilitate that? And I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. And so they loaded up. The university paid for, in each charter bus? 56, I think. They paid for 110 lost students to get on a charter bus and drive down to Panama City, where they got to interact with disaster relief volunteers under their supervision, hearing the gospel time and time again. 15 of those, between those 2 trips, made decisions to trust Jesus and are walking with the Lord now because of the faithfulness of disaster relief volunteers right there. It's an incredible situation. There was a student from Little Rock that started school this fall. And he started school this fall, came to campus, and was just excited about all the newness of being on a university campus. I interacted with him at the lunch that you guys prepare, and he said, I remember these folks. Like they were all up and down our streets when the tornado came. How do you know these people? I'm like, oh, yeah, we work together. That student is one of our greatest leaders right now in his first year at the University of Arkansas. About 2 years ago, we started noticing, hey, we're gaining ground at the University of Arkansas. We're reaching students. Things are going really, really well. But we look just to our north and off a little bit further, I guess, west, and we find, man, JBU's right there. And there are 1,600 students at John Brown University. You know, John Brown is a Christian university and instills Christian principles in a lot of students. However, we know there are still hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students that don't know and walk with the Lord. And so we started the process of trying to start a campus ministry, BCM, Baptist Collegiate Ministry, at John Brown University. This has been our first year, and Tuesday night there were 65 of them in the room, worshiping Jesus with their peers, seeking to serve the Lord in significant ways. Would you pray with me about this? So far, we've done a good job at John Brown connecting to Christian students who want community. We have not done a great job yet reaching out to lost students at John Brown. We know they're there. I mean, they are there. But we've not seen anybody make a decision to trust Jesus. I want you to hear my heart. It's not about numbers. Like, we're not just about up filling a tally board. But we know there are lost students on campus. And this is what I know. If a student graduates from college, 22 years old, and walks across the graduation stage and hasn't responded to the gospel, there's less of a chance they'll respond to the gospel the rest of their life. 80% of all people that come to faith in Jesus come to faith before the age of 18. The other 15% come to faith between 18 and 22. Only 5% of people come to faith in Jesus after the age of 22. That's a sobering fact. 5% of people. And so I want you to hear this. Whenever you baptize an adult in this church, it is time for you to hoop and holler, to shout, to praise, because it is a miracle of the Lord. Every salvation is a miracle of the Lord, but that especially. My prayer and heart is this. We can't make anybody trust Jesus, but we can make sure that they hear. And so my goal is that by the time everybody crosses the graduation stage, that they have heard and had an opportunity to respond to the good news of Jesus. Last update, and then we'll transition to dinner. We have been trying to start work at NWAC also. And that's been a good thing. It's been a thing that we started, it swelled, like God was really moving, and then there's been some stuff that's just got us off track, I'll be honest with you. At NWAC, it's a different campus, and so it's in the middle of Bentonville, you know this, and it's all commuter. They don't have dorms on campus, so that means students drive in and out, and it's just really hard to get on their radar, hard to track them down, hard to even know who's there and who's not. And so we started a weekly lunch Bible study program, and so we invite folks to free lunch that churches in our area provide. That's a way that you could serve down the road. And then when we do, we just have a small Bible study, share the gospel with them. Last semester, we were running about 50 students in that free lunch Bible study. I mean, that's a miracle that we had collected that many in the year and a half. This semester, we get on campus, and we kick off last week, actually, after all the snow and ice. And as we kick off, a leader on campus comes in the room, and she says, Ryan, this is going to be the last week you're able to meet here. I said, what's going on? She said, well, we're going to have to take your reservation from this room away. And the room that we meet in is kind of down in the student center. If you've ever been there, it's kind of in the heart of campus where students pass by. It's easy to invite people to this. She said, I've got one option for you. I can stick you up on the 4th floor in this corner room that seats about 15. And I'm like, oh, man. And you know, you just feel like the wind's out of your sails. And then she tells me that the reservation's been moved because there's a pride group on campus that wants to use this space at this particular time. And for some reason in their system, that takes precedent during this season of time. And so could you just pray with us for this? Like, God is doing some things at Northwest Arkansas Community College. And we really are at a season where it's like we got momentum, we had wind at our backs, but this could really change some things. And so could you pray that God would just provide a way for these students to get excited about meeting, whatever the circumstance, these Christian students. And then secondly, would you pray that we would find some really creative solutions to meeting on campus? I've been talking to some other campus officials trying to say, well, let's do it outside where everybody can see us as they're coming and going as soon as things warm up. But would you pray for that and make it a point of prayer? The third thing I'm going to ask, and then I'll close for you to pray about, is we have a spring break mission trip coming up. We're taking 75 students to Panama City Beach. And you're like, mission trip? You're going to the beach. Sign me up. Like, I'll go to that. And it is fun. Like, students get to hang out at the beach. Like, it's a good time. But this is the weirdest mission trip you've ever heard of. It's a thing called Beach Reach. It's been going on since the 1980s. And every spring break, Baptist Collegiate Ministries and Baptist Church College Ministries go down to two beaches in North America that are the most popular party beaches, Panama City Beach and South Padre Island in Texas. And we go, and we start ministry at about 9 p.m. every night, and we don't finish until about 3 a.m. every night. And our ministry is this. We put our phone numbers out there. We literally say, hey, we have free shuttle service. All the Ubers and taxis shut down for the week because they don't want to put up with the college students that are drunk. And so we become the shuttle service for all these college students that penetrate those areas. Last year, we saw 12 University of Arkansas students that went down to Panama City Beach to drink the week away and party, come to faith in Jesus. Why? Because we had Christian students serving on the beaches. They interacted with them at a low point in their life, and they said, yeah, this is not what I want my life to be. And we have 75 students signed up to go. Now, I'll tell you a little bit transparently about this trip. I recruit really intentionally a lot of young Christians who have never shared their faith before. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of us that have been Christians for a while that it's just hard to share your faith. Like, it's tough. It is. And I intentionally recruit those students. And I recruit them, I put them on a van, and I know that I'm about to pick up hundreds of students that are going to sit next to them on this van, and I'm going to get to sit in the front seat and listen to them attempt to share the gospel with these students. They're going to fail, they're going to mess it up, but here's what I tell them. You know, when you mess up, you don't save anybody anyways. It's Jesus. So all you've done is got them a little bit closer to understanding the good news message. And I get to coach them and tell them, hey, remember, talk about sin, talk about the Savior, and then talk about salvation. And we'll see dozens of students make the decision to trust Jesus. But the most exciting thing to me is seeing dozens of believers in Christ share the gospel for the first time and realize, I can do this. I can absolutely do this. We're going to take about 200 Arkansans down there to join our 70 from the University of Arkansas, and we'll join up with quite a few other folks, and we're going to serve thousands over the course of that week. But yeah, I think that's all I've got. Hey, thank you so much for partnering with us. You don't realize you do, but every Sunday when you give, you are a strategic part of making Baptist Collegiate Ministry happen all across our state. And so thank you for that. We truly couldn't do it without you.